Have you ever wondered how many things in your life at this stage simply don't make sense anymore? It's interesting, but as we age, we realize that so many worries that once seemed important are now just distractions, draining our energy. The reality is this: after 70, many of the things we used to worry about lose their relevance entirely. But what does gain more meaning than ever is how we choose to live each day. Because let's be honest, at this point in life, what are we waiting for? What's holding us back? Today, we're going to talk about 19 things that simply don't make sense anymore after 70. Letting go of them will give you the freedom to live with more purpose, more peace, and above all, more happiness. This isn't about giving up, it's about focusing on what truly matters. My name is Gabriel, and if this is your first time here, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications. Stick with me until the end, because together we're going to uncover how to simplify your life and focus on what really counts. Let's get started. 1. Stop worrying about what others think. Imagine a wise Stoic living up in the mountains, far from bustling Rome, free from the endless opinions and judgments that concerned everyone else in the city. This man didn't care what others thought of him. His peace didn't depend on criticism or praise. One day, a group of young travelers found him and, as expected, started questioning him. "Why do you live alone? Don't you care what people think of you?" The wise man, unfazed, replied, "I am not concerned with the opinions of those who hold no power over my inner peace." And that's the key, isn't it? At this stage in life, does it really matter what others think? What do we gain by trying to please everyone? Epictetus once said, "The only things under your control are your thoughts and actions. Everything else, including others' opinions, has no real power over you. Yet how easily we forget this." What's interesting is that the older we get, the clearer it should become that living in fear of others' opinions is, frankly, a waste of time. After 70, every moment is precious, and giving it away to what others may think about you is simply absurd. Let me tell you something personal. I remember my grandfather, who used to worry constantly about how the neighbors saw him. He would spend hours making sure his yard was perfect, not because he loved gardening, but because he felt haunted by what others might say. One day, after many conversations, he finally realized that those same people he was trying so hard to impress probably didn't pay him any mind. "Gabriel," he told me, "I've spent years worrying about others when I should have been focusing on myself." So here's a practical exercise for you. The next time you catch yourself worrying about what someone else might say or think, pause. Ask yourself, does this really affect my life? Or is it just stealing my peace? Do this as often as you need until it becomes a habit. Because at this point in life, the only thing worth your attention is what brings you peace, not opinions that come and go like the wind. 2. Stop putting off what you really want to do. If you don't do it now, when will you? Think about it. For years, maybe decades, you've postponed things you've always wanted to do. Maybe it's that dream trip, or learning something new, reconnecting with someone, or simply indulging in what makes you happy. The truth is, many of us live as if we have all the time in the world. But at 70, that someday doesn't make much sense anymore, does it? This reminds me of Seneca, who often said, "Life is like a rushing river, and while we delay, time escapes us." If we keep saying we'll do it later, chances are we never will. Here's something personal. My friend Michael, who's over 70, always talked about learning to paint. He loved art, but he'd spent his whole life busy with work, family, and responsibilities. When he retired, he still kept putting it off, saying he'd get to it when he had more time. One day, during a conversation, I challenged him. "Michael, what are you waiting for?" I said, "There's no better time than now. The best day to start was yesterday. The second best day is today. Do you know what happened? After some thought, he signed up for a painting class, and he found more than just a hobby. He discovered a passion that made him feel alive, full of purpose. For the first time in years, he felt that time spent on himself was worth more than anything else. Sometimes all we need is that small push to finally do what we've always wanted. Here's your practical task. Think of something you've been putting off. It doesn't matter if it's big or small. It could be a personal project, a trip, or even something as simple as reading that book you've always set aside. Write it down and ask yourself, why have I been postponing this? What's truly holding me back? Once you understand it, make a decision. Start now. Take the first step today, however small it may be, because at this stage in life, there's no time to waste. As Seneca would say, seize the day, because the present moment is all we're truly promised. 3. Holding on to material things. Have you noticed how, as time goes by, we keep accumulating things? Things that seemed important once, but now just take up space and collect dust. It's as if we're building a fortress of objects around us, but oddly, that fortress doesn't protect us from anything. In fact, sometimes it feels like it's trapping us. There's a story from Epictetus that illustrates this perfectly. One day, while walking through the city, he saw a man in distress over losing a small amount of money. The man was shouting to the heavens, cursing his bad luck. Epictetus, calm as ever, approached him and said, "It's not the money you've lost, it's your peace that you're giving away." The lesson here is clear. The more we cling to material things, the easier it is to lose sight of what truly matters. The Stoics constantly reminded us that everything we own is temporary. Marcus Aurelius said, "Everything around you will soon be history." So why hold on to things that in the end don't bring us real satisfaction? Let me share a personal story. When my mother reached 70, she started noticing that her house was full of things she didn't need. Clothes, furniture, decorations. Each had been useful once, but now they were just burdens. One day she told me, "Gabriel, why am I keeping all of this? They're just things." And letting go of them was freeing for her. She didn't just clear out space in her house, she cleared space in her mind. So here's a practical exercise for you. Look around. Take stock of the things you keep, but that no longer serve you. Do you really need them? Perhaps it's time to let them go. Start small. Give away a piece of clothing you no longer wear. Get rid of those objects that only take up space. And as you do this, reflect. Am I letting go of just physical things, or am I also releasing a mental weight? Remember, holding on to material things is like carrying stones in a backpack when what you truly need is to travel lighter. 4. Living in the past. The past is like a movie we've already seen. Some scenes we remember fondly, others leave us with that, "if only I had done it differently" feeling. But here's the thing. That movie, no matter how much we rewind and analyze each scene, won't change. The past has happened, and holding on to it is like trying to catch water with your hands. It slips away, leaving only the frustration of not being able to keep it. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, the present is all you possess. The past is out of reach. How many times have we let our minds get stuck in what has already happened? Whether it's thinking about missed opportunities, old mistakes, or moments of glory that now feel so distant, living in the past robs us of the most precious thing we have, the present. Let me share something that happened to me. For a long time, I got trapped in nostalgia, remembering how things used to be, the friendships, the jobs, the places. But one day, during a conversation with a friend, I realized all those memories were keeping me from appreciating what was right in front of me. I was so caught up in what no longer was that I couldn't see what was. And that's when I understood what Marcus Aurelius was trying to teach us. The past is a prison that only exists if we choose to stay inside. Now think about your own past. Is there something you keep replaying in your mind? Maybe a mistake you made, a conversation you wish you'd had, or a time in your life that you miss. Here's your practical task. Every time your mind drifts back to that place, stop for a moment. Ask yourself, what can I do now that actually changes my life today? Because life isn't lived in the past, it's lived in the present. And if you keep looking back, you'll miss what's right in front of you. So the next time you catch yourself reliving moments that are gone, take a deep breath. Be grateful for what was, but let it go. Your life isn't in what has passed. It's in what you decide to do today. 5. Fear of the future. The future has always been an unknown that can stir up worry and sometimes even fear. But here's the thing. Fear doesn't change the future. Worrying about what may or may not happen simply doesn't make sense. At this stage of life, is it worth spending energy on something that hasn't even happened? Marcus Aurelius once said, "Do not let the future disturb you. You will meet it if you have to, with the same tools of reason you use to tackle the present." In other words, whatever comes your way, you'll face it with the strengths you already possess. It's easy to get caught up in anxiety over what tomorrow might bring. Will I get sick? What will happen to my loved ones? But if you think about it, worry is a thief of time and energy. The future is a place you haven't reached yet. And if you get too distracted with it, you'll miss the present you have right here, right now. Here's one way to think of it. Consider how many times you've worried about something that never even happened. Those times you imagined the worst, only for things to turn out far better than you'd anticipated. Worrying about the future is like trying to cross a bridge that hasn't even been built yet. So here's the practical advice. When you find yourself lost in thoughts about the future, remember this. Life happens one day at a time. Make a simple list of the things you can control today. Don't try to solve what hasn't come into existence yet. Instead, take a deep breath and focus on what's in front of you. As Epictetus would say, do not anticipate trouble. Deal with what's before you now, the rest will come in its own time. 6. Maintaining superficial relationships. At 70 and beyond, relationships change, or at least they should. It's no longer about quantity, but quality. Superficial relationships, those where conversations never go beyond small talk or lack a genuine emotional exchange, have no place in your life anymore. As Seneca put it, a friend is not the one who always praises you, but the one who lovingly points out where you can grow. At this age, you need people who are authentic, not appearances or hollow smiles. It's interesting how relationships get filtered over the years. The more time passes, the clearer it becomes who's genuinely there for you and who was just passing by. Maybe there was room for trivial conversations before, but now, what's the point of keeping relationships that don't bring anything meaningful? We're talking about deep connections, the ones that enrich you, support you, and bring you peace. Now's not the time to spend energy on anyone unwilling to truly connect with you. Here's a simple suggestion. Take an honest look at your relationships. Think about the people you have a genuine connection with. I'm not talking about endless conversations, but about those who know you, support you, and understand you. Also, identify the relationships that no longer serve you. It's time to give them a smaller place in your life, or perhaps let them go entirely. As a practical exercise, take out your phone, call someone you genuinely enjoy talking to, someone who makes you feel heard, and have a sincere conversation. Because in the end, it's these authentic connections that will nourish you emotionally and be your true companions in this stage of life. Remember, at this point, depth is worth more than quantity. Superficial relationships are like a shallow pool of water. No matter how large it is, it's still far too shallow to truly quench your thirst. 7. Avoiding difficult conversations. Throughout life, we've learned to dodge certain conversations like they're landmines. We tell ourselves, better not bring that up now, thinking that avoiding it will save us from discomfort. But you know what? At this stage, the time for dodging has passed. Difficult conversations won't disappear magically, and strangely enough, avoiding them only creates more unease. Think of Epictetus, who taught that what discomforts us is often what we most need to face. Because in the end, what we don't say weighs on us. It could be an overdue conversation with a loved one, an apology never given, or a truth we've long avoided. And here's the truth. Avoiding isn't the same as resolving. It's like kicking a ball down a hill. Eventually, you'll have to go down and pick it up. Here's a real-life example. I know a man named Robert who, at 70, was still avoiding a crucial conversation with his son. Years earlier, they'd had a falling out, and since then, neither had spoken. Each waited for the other to take the first step. Time passed, but the distance between them remained. One day, Robert realized that carrying that resentment wasn't worth it anymore and decided to call his son. It wasn't easy, but after that call, he told me, "I lifted a weight I'd been carrying for years." And that's what happens when you confront what troubles you. You set yourself free. So here's an exercise. Think of a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. It could be with a family member, a friend, or even yourself. Write down what you want to say. It doesn't have to be perfect, just honest. Then, take the first step. At this stage, truths spoken with compassion are far more powerful than any temporary discomfort. 8. Competing with others. Competition is something we've learned from an early age. There's always someone better, faster, stronger, and life becomes an endless race of comparisons. But at 70, competing with others just doesn't make sense anymore. In truth, it never did. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts." And does competing with others really improve the quality of your thoughts? I doubt it. The truth is, the only person worth competing with is yourself. At this age, victories aren't measured by having more or doing more, but by how you feel within. Are you better than yesterday? Are you more at peace than before? In the end, everything else is an illusion. Constantly comparing yourself to others is like running on a treadmill. You're moving, but you're not getting anywhere. Let me share something interesting. A recent study found that as we age, personal satisfaction increases when we stop comparing ourselves to others and focus on our own achievements, no matter how small. And guess what? Science agrees with Marcus Aurelius. True peace comes when you stop running that imaginary race and start enjoying your own journey. So, what can you do? Every time you catch yourself comparing yourself to someone else, pause. Reflect on something you've done in the past few months that made you feel proud. It doesn't matter how small it was. Write down that achievement and remember it every time that inner competition tries to take over. The only race worth running is the one you set, and in that race, you're already winning. So next time you feel the pressure to compare yourself with others, take a deep breath and realize this. True competition ends when you understand that the only thing that matters is what brings you peace within. 9. Denying the changes in your body. No one loves the idea of aging, much less dealing with the physical changes it brings. But let's be realistic. Denying them won't stop them. We're not as agile or as strong as we were decades ago, and that's okay. Marcus Aurelius put it plainly. Everything that happens, happens as it should. Aging is as natural as sunrise and sunset, and resisting it is like trying to stop the sun with your hands. You simply can't. Now, I'm not saying you should just resign yourself and let your body wear down without doing anything about it. Quite the opposite. It's about accepting these changes gracefully and working with them, not against them. Accepting aging isn't surrender. It's understanding that this stage of life has its own beauty too. Think about it. Your body has been your faithful companion for decades. It's endured more than you could have imagined, and it's still here, allowing you to enjoy this life. Doesn't it deserve some respect and care? I know a woman named Martha who, after 70, felt frustrated that she couldn't do the same physical activities she used to. But one day, instead of fighting her body, she decided to adjust. She started doing adapted yoga and gentle walks. She told me, instead of complaining about what I can't do, I began to enjoy what I can do. And that's the key. Here's an exercise for you. Every time you feel frustrated by something you can no longer do as before, think of an activity you enjoy that suits you now. It could be a walk, some stretches, or even just the pleasure of reading a good book. It's not about what you've lost, but about what you can still do, because as long as you keep moving, you're still winning. 10. Holding on to grudges. Holding on to grudges is like drinking poison and hoping the other person gets sick. We've all heard this, yet many of us still find ourselves carrying grudges as if they were trophies. But here's the thing. After 70, it's an unnecessary weight. Seneca said, "The biggest obstacle to living is the expectation that depends on tomorrow and wastes today. And a grudge is exactly that. An unmet expectation, a burden that feels heavy but holds you back. It's like carrying a backpack full of stones while trying to climb a mountain. Can you imagine? Every step becomes harder than it needs to be, and the truth is, you could move much faster and lighter if you just left those stones along the path. In the end, grudges only hurt you. The person you're angry with likely doesn't even know, or worse, doesn't care. Is it really worth it? Let me share a quick story. My uncle didn't speak to his best friend for years because of a misunderstanding that wasn't even that serious. Every time someone mentioned his friend's name, my uncle would make a bitter comment, as if the whole thing still burned inside him. One day he decided he'd had enough, called his friend, and cleared the air. The surprising part? His friend didn't even remember what the conflict was about. After hanging up, my uncle told me, "I wasted years for nothing." So here's a practical exercise. Think of someone with whom you have unresolved conflict. Write them a letter, not to send, but to release everything you feel. Don't hold anything back. When you're done, read it out loud and then decide, do you want to keep carrying that weight, or would you rather let it go? Because in the end, holding on to grudges only makes the journey harder, and life's already short enough without extra baggage. Remember, forgiveness isn't a gift for the other person. It's a gift for yourself. It frees you, lightens you, and allows you to move forward with greater peace. 11. Living without purpose. There comes a point in life when you might think, I've done everything I needed to do. Now what? This feeling of having fulfilled your responsibilities can leave you feeling a bit lost, as if you suddenly don't know where to go next. But here's the truth. Having a purpose doesn't depend on age or big accomplishments. Seneca said, "Without a purpose, there is no life." And it's especially in this stage that purpose takes on a new meaning. Purpose, after 70, isn't about building empires or achieving lofty goals. It can be as simple as finding joy in the small things, tending to your garden, sharing stories with your grandchildren, or learning something new. Purpose is what gives you a reason to get up in the morning, that spark to keep enjoying each day. And it doesn't matter how big or small it is, what matters is that it makes you feel like you still have something to give to the world, or even just to yourself. I know a woman, Mary, who felt lost after she retired. Her job had been her identity for over 40 years. One day, she decided to take cooking classes, something she'd always loved but never had time for. Her new purpose? Cooking for her family, experimenting with new recipes, and even teaching her grandkids to cook. Something as simple as that restored her motivation and, according to her, gave her more years of life. Here's an exercise for you. Think of something that makes you smile, something you enjoy doing, or something you've always wanted to try but never found the time for. It doesn't have to be anything big. Write it down and start dedicating a little time to it each day, because as long as you have something that drives you to enjoy your days, your life will have purpose. 12. Worrying too much about money. Throughout life, we've learned that money is important, and of course it is. It provides security and allows us to cover our basic needs. But after 70, an obsession with accumulating money or worrying excessively about it no longer makes sense. Epictetus reminded us that external things don't determine our happiness, and money is precisely one of those external things. Whether you have it or not shouldn't define the value of your life or the quality of your well-being. At this stage, the key is to change your relationship with money. It's no longer about accumulating more, but about using it wisely for what truly matters. Maybe it's enjoying a good meal, taking a peaceful trip, or simply treating yourself to something you always put off. In the end, money is just a tool, not an end in itself. Let me share something interesting. A recent study found that after a certain age, money no longer has a significant impact on happiness. What really matters are experiences and relationships. Spending on things that make you feel alive or connect you with others brings a much greater sense of satisfaction than any amount sitting in a bank account. So here's a practical exercise. Instead of worrying about what you have or don't have, think about how you can use your money to create moments of happiness. It could be as simple as inviting a friend for coffee, going to a concert you enjoy, or buying something that brings you joy. Money, after all, is there to serve you, not for you to be its servant. Remember, it's not about how much you have, but how you use it. And at this point, the most important thing is to use it in ways that allow you to enjoy life in a way that feels meaningful to you. 13. Avoiding new learning. Who said that the ability to learn has an expiration date? At 70, many people think there's no room for new learning, as if the brain has gone into retirement mode. But let me tell you something, that's just a myth. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul is strengthened by what it takes in and weakened by what it rejects." Learning is one of the most powerful exercises we have to stay alive, active, and above all, to keep growing. And the best part is, whether you're 20, 50, or 70 years old, there's always something new to learn. Let me tell you a story. In ancient Greece, there was a philosopher named Pythagoras who, at 90, continued studying mathematics and astronomy. People mocked him, saying that at his age, there was no point in continuing to learn. But he replied, "The day I stop learning will be the day I stop living." And that's the truth. Learning, in any form, is what keeps our minds sharp and our spirits young. It's easy to think you no longer have the time or energy to learn something new. But here's the truth. Learning doesn't have to be about complex or theoretical things. It can be as simple as exploring a new recipe, trying out a new hobby, or even learning how to use an app on your phone. Each time you learn something, you're telling your brain there's still more to discover, that it's not time to shut down yet. So here's an exercise for you. Choose one new thing you've always wanted to learn. It can be something big, like a new language, or something small, like learning to plant a certain flower. What's important is that it excites you. Start slowly, without pressure. Because every time you challenge your mind, you're giving it more reasons to stay active. And remember what Marcus Aurelius said, "What the soul takes in, strengthens it." Keep feeding your soul with curiosity, and you'll never stop growing. 14. Ignoring emotional health. Throughout life, we tend to place a lot of emphasis on physical health, staying active, watching what we eat, getting regular checkups. And that's all well and good. But there's one essential part we sometimes overlook: emotional health. Ignoring your emotions at 70 is like having a beautiful house on the outside, but with a slow water leak inside, gradually weakening it. If you don't care for what's inside, eventually what's visible on the outside will deteriorate too. Seneca once said, "If you want to be happy, be in control of your emotions, not a slave to them." And that's a truth we can't ignore. Often, we think that emotions no longer carry as much weight in this stage of life, that we should be beyond them by now. But the truth is, at any age, we still face situations that affect us emotionally. Losses, changes, loneliness, memories. Emotional health is as important as physical health, sometimes even more so, because it determines how we handle all other challenges. Let me share a story with you. In a small village on the outskirts of ancient Rome, there was a wise man who dedicated his life to meditating and teaching others to manage their emotions. One day, a young man came to him and said, "Master, how can I control the sadness I feel?" The wise man replied, "Do not try to control sadness, simply feel it and learn from it. Emotions are not your enemy, they are your teacher." And that's the point. Our emotions are not there to bother us, they're there to teach us something. Ignoring them only allows them to accumulate until we can no longer handle them. Here's a practical exercise for you. Each time you feel a strong emotion, be it sadness, anger, or even joy, don't ignore it. Instead, sit with it. Ask yourself, what is this emotion telling me? What can I learn from this? Sometimes, simply acknowledging how you feel can bring relief. And if you feel like you need to talk to someone, do it. There is no shame in seeking emotional support. On the contrary, it's a sign of strength, not weakness. Remember what Seneca said about mastering our emotions. It's not about avoiding them, but about learning to live with them without being ruled by them. Because true peace, both physical and emotional, is what allows you to fully enjoy each day. 15. Refusing to adapt to technology. Let me share a story with you. My neighbor, Mr. Ernest, a cheerful man over 70, would always ask for help with his phone. "Gabriel, can you help me send this WhatsApp message?" Or, "How do I call my grandkids on video?" These were such simple questions that they took me by surprise at first. The younger family members didn't even pay attention. They said they didn't have the patience. But honestly, I enjoyed those moments with him. We'd sit together, and I'd explain everything patiently. In between lessons, we'd talk about life and laugh a bit. Initially, it seemed like he just needed a little nudge. But then, it got to the point where Mr. Ernest was calling me daily. Always for the same thing, sending a voice message, sharing a photo, or dialing a number on WhatsApp. I remember one particular afternoon. I was explaining for the 10th time how to send a voice message, calmly and patiently, as always. Suddenly, I realized something. The issue wasn't that Mr. Ernest couldn't understand the technology. It wasn't that the phone was too complicated or that the apps were a mystery. No. The real issue was his firm belief that at his age, he couldn't adapt. He was convinced that technology was out of his reach, that he was too old to learn these young people's things. And with that belief, he blocked himself each time he tried to use his phone. Often it's not technology that holds us back, it's what we believe about ourselves. Mr. Ernest had fallen into that mental trap, thinking it's too late to adapt. But in reality, learning is always within our reach, at any age. The problem wasn't the device or the app, it was the mental barrier he created by thinking he couldn't learn new things anymore. One day I told him, "Mr. Ernest, it's not the phone that's the problem. It's that you keep telling yourself you can't, and with that mindset, there's no way you'll get it. It's not about understanding everything all at once. It's about practice, like anything else in life. Remember learning to ride a bike? It was hard at first, but then it became second nature. Technology isn't designed only for the young. It's nothing to fear. It's a tool for connecting with others, making life simpler, and why not, for entertainment. You don't have to master it perfectly, you just have to get comfortable with it. Here's a practical exercise for you. If you've ever felt frustrated by technology, take it easy. Ask for help, but don't get discouraged if you don't understand it immediately. Next time you're using your phone or computer, instead of thinking, "This isn't for me," think, "This is an opportunity to learn something new." Don't set limits on yourself. While it may be uncomfortable at first, on the other side lies a sense of independence and connection with loved ones. 16. Holding on to harmful habits. Habits are like the roots of a tree. Some give us stability, while others are like rotten roots that weaken the tree from within. At 70, holding on to habits that harm you makes no sense, because this is the time in life when your well-being should be your top priority. There's no time to waste on things you know aren't good for you. This is not the time to say, "I'll do it later," because later is already here. Epictetus said, "Freedom is nothing more than self-control." Part of that control is recognizing what you're doing that's keeping you from that freedom. Maybe it's a lack of exercise, an unhealthy diet, or emotional habits like constant negativity or resentment. These habits, though small, act as invisible weights you carry each day, and as we age, those weights grow heavier. I remember a friend, John, who didn't pay attention to his eating habits for years. He always said, "I'm going to enjoy life. What does it matter?" But as time passed, his body began to suffer from those excesses. It wasn't until he had a serious conversation with his doctor that he realized he'd been compromising his quality of life. He decided to change, little by little. He started walking more, eating healthier, and most importantly, changing his mindset. John said to me, "I'm not depriving myself of anything, Gabriel. I'm giving myself the chance to live better." Here's an exercise for you. Think about one habit you know isn't doing you any good. It could be physical, emotional, or mental. Identify it. Now, imagine how you'd feel if you let go of that habit, if you replaced it with something that makes you feel better, lighter, healthier. You don't have to change everything at once. Take a small step toward change. As Epictetus said, freedom begins when you take control of yourself. And at this stage, the freedom you need most is the one that allows you to enjoy each day fully. Remember, every small change counts, and each habit you let go of is one less weight to carry on this journey. 17. Living without appreciating simple moments. There's something magical in simplicity. A quiet sunrise, a warm cup of coffee in the morning, the sound of the wind in the trees. Small things that we probably missed noticing when we were younger. But now, at this stage of life, those little details start to shine more than ever. Marcus Aurelius put it clearly, "Look within, the peace is within." And that peace, that sense of well-being, is found in learning to enjoy the everyday, in living without unreachable expectations. The problem is, we often get so caught up in worrying about the past or what tomorrow might bring that we forget to enjoy today. We get lost in big, complicated plans, while real happiness often lies in the small, unnoticed moments. It could be a chat with a friend, a quiet moment at sunset, or simply listening to your favorite song. These are the moments that, when we truly appreciate them, bring richness to our day-to-day life. Here's a practical exercise. Make a list of 5 simple things you enjoy, little things you can do every day. Maybe it's reading a few pages of a book, watering your plants, or just taking a walk outdoors. Dedicate at least 10 minutes each day to one of these simple pleasures. Do it mindfully, without distractions. Don't let the day slip by without appreciating it, because in the end, it's these moments that make life truly worthwhile. 18. Not sharing your wisdom. If there's one thing we accumulate over the years, it's wisdom, lived experiences, lessons learned, mistakes made, and successes achieved. By the time you reach 70, you carry a treasure trove of knowledge that shouldn't be underestimated. And what's the point of keeping it all to yourself? Seneca told us, "No man is an island. We share the world, and therefore we must share what we know." Sometimes we might fall into thinking, "No one wants to hear what I have to say," or "the young won't understand." But you know what? Sharing your wisdom is not only an act of generosity, it's a way to leave a lasting impact. The generations that come after you need the benefit of your experience. They may not always admit it, but they're looking for guidance that only life itself can provide. When you share your stories, your advice, your lessons, you're not only helping others, you're leaving a legacy. Here's a practical action for you. The next time you're with a loved one, a friend, or even someone younger, take a moment to share something you've learned over the years. It could be a piece of advice, a story, or a life lesson. Do it naturally, without forcing it. You may find that your wisdom not only brightens someone else's path, but also helps you reflect on your own journey and find deeper meaning. Because by sharing what you know, you become immortal in the minds and hearts of those who listen. 19. Fear of death. Death is, without a doubt, one of the greatest fears for many. But what's the point of fearing something inevitable? Seneca once said, "A life without reflection on death is a life without meaning." By the time we reach 70, we've witnessed the passage of time, the comings and goings of friends and family, and it's natural for thoughts of death to arise. But living with a constant fear of what's to come only robs us of the chance to fully enjoy the present. Death, in the end, is simply another part of life. We cannot change it, but we can choose how we respond to it. Fear paralyzes us, holding us back from savoring the days we still have, whereas acceptance frees us. Marcus Aurelius saw death as a return to nature. Not as the end of all things, but as a transformation, as natural as breathing. Instead of fearing it, why not see it as just one more reason to live fully? Each sunrise, each conversation, each moment spent with loved ones is a gift life gives you to make every day count. Don't dwell on how many days you may have left. Focus on making today meaningful. Perhaps what scares us most about death is not death itself, but the thought of leaving things unsaid or undone. So, if there's anything you feel you haven't done, don't delay any longer. Live today knowing you're embracing what matters to you without regrets. 20. Fear of not leaving a legacy. Sometimes we reach an age where we start wondering, have I left a mark? What will remain of me when I'm gone? The desire to leave a legacy is deeply human. But here's the secret. A legacy doesn't have to be something monumental. There's no need to build great works or be remembered by entire generations. Your legacy lies in the small things you do each day, in the lives you've touched. Marcus Aurelius said, "What we do in life echoes in eternity." Every act of kindness, each lesson shared, every moment when you were a light for someone else, that's a legacy in itself. We often think a legacy has to be grand, but in reality, it's in the simplest things. It's in how you treated those you loved, in the stories you told, and in the values you passed on. Those little things, which may have seemed insignificant at the time, are what truly make a difference. Think of how many times someone has reminded you of something you did or said years ago, something that might have seemed small to you, but was meaningful to them. That's a legacy. So instead of worrying about whether you've left enough behind, keep doing what you do best: listening, sharing, helping. The impact you leave on those around you is your true legacy. And remember, as Seneca said, it doesn't matter how long you live, but how well you live. Your legacy is already being built one day at a time. And the best part is, as long as you're here, you can keep adding to it. Applying each of these lessons is not just a way to live better, it's a profound act of self-love. Accepting that at this stage of life, we can let go of what no longer serves us, learn new things, and focus on what truly matters is a way of caring for ourselves from the heart. It's understanding that we deserve peace, we deserve to enjoy the simple things, and above all, we deserve to live fully. Every small adjustment, every habit we let go of or change is a statement that we are here to live with purpose. We're not just passing time, we're choosing how we want to live it. Stoicism reminds us that although we cannot control everything, we can choose our attitude, our actions, and our inner peace. And that, my friend, is the deepest act of love toward oneself. If you've made it this far, it's because you take your well-being and personal growth seriously. My name is Gabriel, and if this is your first time on the channel, I invite you to subscribe and activate the notification bell so you don't miss any of the topics we'll be exploring. And now, I have a special request for you. If you've reached the end of this video, please comment with the phrase, "I love wisdom," and let me know where you're listening from. I'd love to know from which country you're connecting and who's with me on this journey of self-discovery and wisdom. Before you go, share this video with your loved ones. Perhaps there's someone in your life who could benefit from hearing these words today and gain a new perspective. Remember, sometimes a small piece of advice can make a big difference. I'll see you in the next video.